Hey, what's going on everybody? Today I'm going to show you how to set up a UniFi access point from Ubiquiti. This is just going to be a step-by-step guide because these things can be a little bit different than your regular Wi-Fi access points or Wi-Fi routers that you would find at the store. And that is because they are managed using what's called the controller software instead of just logging into the device itself. So most of us are used to just going to the IP of our home router, logging in with a username and password, and being able to manage our Wi-Fi network. These things were made for businesses or enterprises that have a lot of access points. So basically, the actual thing you buy is just a dumb access point, and you have to configure it using separate software that's hosted on another machine, be it a server or your desktop or whatever. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do today, just enough to get you off the ground and kind of a step-by-step how to install the controller software and then set up your first Wi-Fi network. It really is simple, it's just a little bit different than what you might be used to or what you might expect. So the first thing you want to do is when you take it out of the box, after you've verified that everything you bought is actually in the box, you're going to want to find this little brick thing. Hopefully it came with yours. This is a PoE injector or power over Ethernet injector. So these things are not actually powered by a wall wart or any kind of power cable at all. They're powered over the actual Cat5 cable that you connect to it. And that's what this thing does. You can see that there's two ports, one labeled LAN, the other labeled PoE. So you're going to connect your LAN port into your router. For this, I'm using an Edge Router X as my example. So just one of the free ports there. And you're going to connect the PoE side actually into your access point. And if your access point has a main and a secondary port, connect it to the main. If you have one with two ports, the secondary port is actually a port that will carry the PoE downstream to another access point if you want to chain these on each other. So once that's plugged in to your network, just wait a minute for it to get an address. Once it's ready, the light on the top, which should be white right now, flashing, it'll be a solid white once it's got its IP address from your already functioning DHCP server and ready to be discovered by the software. So the access point that I'm using in this video is actually just a Ubiquiti AP Pro. It's one of the older models that doesn't support AC, but it's just one that I had laying around. Now you'll have to reference your AP's documentation to see if it actually supports 24 volt passive PoE, 48 volt passive PoE, or actual standard PoE that can be created by a switch. If the access point requires PoE though, it should come with the PoE injector unless you bought it as a part of a set that explicitly said it does not include this injector. If yours didn't come with an injector, you need to make sure you buy the right one in order to power it or have a switch that's capable of producing whatever power it takes. And that's going to vary depending on which model you actually have. This specific one takes 48 volt passive. Now once your AP is plugged in and ready to go, the Lite is solid, just head over to UI.com, unifi.com, and go to the downloads section. Now from here you're going to select whatever model of access point that you have. So first go to UniFi and then browse down here for your specific model. So for me, I have the AP Pro, which I don't actually see specifically in this list. So let's just go to UniFi AP. And yeah, here it is, UAP Pro right underneath there. So it's a kind of a submodel of the actual UniFi AP. And in this download list, you're going to have firmware, software, and documentation. Now, you should have the documentation in the box with your AP, but if not, you can download the quick start guide. That's the best way to go. So if we just go here, download this, then we have our electronic user guide here. And mostly this is probably going to go through like mounting instructions, connecting it. Most of your questions should be answered in this guide, although I know sometimes it can be a little bit confusing. But at some point it should tell you to install the software. Now this is not in English, so I'm not sure which one I clicked on. So let's go to the quick start guide for this one. English. There we go. So we got mounting instructions, a whole lot of mounting instructions. And eventually you'll get down to the point where it wants you to install the software. So it says download and install the latest version of the UniFi controller software. So this is what's special about these access points. You have to use this software in order to configure it because you can't log into the device itself. So go into this link, which is ui.com/download/unifi. This gives you all of the downloads of the software, as well as some quick start guides. So it looks like, actually I don't know what model we're under, but here in the software section, which was actually here as well. You don't have to go through the quick start guide in order to get that link. It's right here in the software section. But you'll just download UniFi Network Controller for Windows if you're on a Windows, and Mac if you're on Mac, Linux if you're on Linux. And we'll just go ahead and click download and accept and download the file. And it's going to download UniFi installer.exe, save that, and then go ahead and open it and install it. Now you might notice here in the list there's one for Debian Ubuntu and UniFi Cloud Key. Actually, there's two versions for that in UniFi Cloud Key. So this UniFi Cloud Key is a separate piece of hardware that you can buy, which is kind of resemblant of a Raspberry Pi. And what that is a separate piece of hardware that runs this controller software for you 24/7. So you don't have to just install this controller software on your Windows or whatever PC. If you want to take advantage of some of the advanced features that it has, you're going to want to run a controller 24/7. And for that, you're going to have to install it on something else. Unless you're just going to run your PC 24/7, that is. For me, I host it in a virtual machine on a server. But the quickest way is to just download it for your PC, configure it up, and then forget about it. So the only downside is that if you want to make some changes later, you have to either re-download the controller software or reopen it to actually make your changes. So let's go ahead and install the UniFi controller here. So it asks me if I want to upgrade. Sure, it shouldn't ask you if you want to upgrade. I've already installed this before. I just removed it. For some reason it thinks it's still installed. So hopefully this video goes good, since it was supposed to remove all the settings, but obviously it didn't. Alright, and we're going to leave Start UniFi Controller after installation checked and hit Finish. And it's going to initialize the controller, go through all of these steps, and it should get a green check mark here in a second. And then we'll be able to click this Launch a Browser to Manage the Network button. Alright, it's done, so let's launch the browser. It's going to give you a certificate error, that's fine. Just go to Advanced, proceed to localhost. And here it's going to ask you to name your controller. So you can name it pretty much anything you want. We're just going to do Test Controller. And you can also restore setup from a backup if you have one. We don't. Let's go to Next. Now here it wants you to sign in with your Ubiquiti account. So if you have a Ubiquiti account and you want to use the online features like the Cloud Access Manager, you just log in with those credentials here, and it's going to tie this controller with your Ubiquiti account. Or if you don't feel like doing that, you can go to Advanced Setup, and you can uncheck Use Your Ubiquiti account for local access, and you can come up with your own username and password, which is what I'm going to do here. So local administrator username, I'm just going to do test, and the password 1234567 1234567 and then an email test@test.net. Now let's just hit next. Okay, so it's wanting us to sign in with the Ubiquiti account again. So let's go back here and uncheck enable remote access. So we have to turn that off, or else it wants us to still log in with our Ubiquiti account to have that cloud access. Here we go. So automatically optimize the network, we're just going to leave that checked, as well as auto backup. Hit next, and now it wants to name the Wi-Fi. So this is going to be the SSID of your actual Wi-Fi network. So let's name it test_Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi password, again, 1234567 And then this little thing right here asks if you want to combine the 2 GHz and 5 GHz Wi-Fi network names into one. So if this is on, you're only going to see one SSID. So when we bring this up on our phone, we're going to see test Wi-Fi. We'll be able to connect with a password of 1 through 8. And that's it. We don't have a difference between 2 GHz or 5 GHz. It just connects to whichever one is preferable to that device. Now, if you want it to where there's actually 2 separate networks, it'll be test Wi-Fi 2 GHz and test Wi-Fi 5 GHz. Personally, I like to turn that on, so we'll leave that on and hit next. And now here's the device setup. Now, as long as your access point got an IP address on the same network as this controller using your DHCP server, it should show up here. If it doesn't, you're going to want to hold down the reset button on your access point, which should be on the back in between the ports if you have 2 of them. Just hold that down for a little bit, reset it to factory, let it grab another IP address, and it'll show up here. If it still doesn't show up here, then there's going to be a little more troubleshooting. You want to make sure that you actually have an IP address on your access point. And if you're using an edge router, I'll show you how to verify that real fast. So if you're using an edge router, just head to your DHCP section, go to the DHCP server for that specific local area network that you've plugged your access point into, which you probably only have one. And then just scroll through until you see the host name, something either that you don't recognize or something that says UniFi. So it looks like it's not showing up here, but I see two that I don't recognize, 196 and 129. And if we open up our controller tab again, we can see that the Pro is the 129. So this one that I didn't recognize, this is actually the controller. And you can bring this up beforehand and make sure that you can kind of see what new pops up once you plug your access point in. If you don't see anything pop up, then it didn't get an IP address, and you'll have to troubleshoot further. But anyways, we're going to check the access point once it's been discovered there. Hit next. And this is going to review the configuration with you. So your controller name is test controller. Remote access is disabled. You can leave that on if you have a Ubiquiti account and you want to sign in with it. Use Ubiquiti account for local access. No, we created our own username and password. The local administrator username is test. The Wi-Fi name is test_Wi-Fi. And then we can set our time zone and area. So sure, Chicago time zone, that's what I'm in. Now let's hit finish. Now at this point, it's going to push the configurations to your access points. And if we go over here on the left or just right here to access points or devices, click on that. It's going to show all of the devices you have connected to this controller, which should be one. So this is the one we're trying to set up right now, and it says adopting update required. So let's go ahead and click on this, and it says a firmware update's available that includes key updates improving device, and it's automatically updating. So right now the controller is communicating with the access point, it's pushing all the updates that it needs, and then it's going to push the configurations that we just made for the SSID of test, Wi-Fi, and all the usernames and all that. Now, once it pushes all of this to the access point, that access point is now tied to this controller. If you install the controller software on a different PC from scratch, you will not be able to just directly manage this access point. Once it's adopted to this version of the controller, it is tied to it. If you spin up a new instance of controller software, you're going to have to, I believe it's just called unadopt or something like that. You have to basically blow out the configuration of this one, readopt the access point to the new controller software, and reconfigure it from scratch. Now, if you took a backup of whatever controller software you used to configure it, which I believe you can do in one of these menus here, and backup restore. So you can download the backup file here. So download the backup for the last 7 days. You can set this to whatever time period really you want, and you can download the file. And this is going to be the file that you'll upload if you were to install a new instance of this controller software. Now let's kind of go into some of the other menus. At this point, all the configuration we've done is enough to get you off the ground. So as long as your network has been functioning before you put this in, at this point, once it's done provisioning, you will be able to connect to it and access the internet. So what I'm going to show you at this point is just kind of a little bit extra that you might want to do with it. Let's see, clients tab, this is where you'll show clients that are connected, if there were any yet. Insights, again, clients and insights about those clients. You can put these devices on a map, kind of create one if you have multiples. Statistics, once it comes up, it'll show some statistics. But one of the main things is this wireless networks. So here, this is under settings, wireless networks. You can see we have test Wi-Fi, it's security, and you can edit your wireless network here. This is where all of your configuration is going to be done if you want to change it. So under the advanced options, we can use a VLAN tag if we want for this wireless network. If you have multiple SSIDs, you can have more than one on this single device. So you could have test Wi-Fi 1, 2, 3, or 4, and you could use VLAN tags to separate them if you have a router in the configuration for VLANs. You can hide your SSID. This fast roaming is It's supposed to make it to where whenever your device gets away from one access point and near another one, it automatically switches without any interruption. However, you can see it as beta. From experience, leaving this off works, I think, just as well, because these access points actually have another kind of feature or standard where your phone or whatever you're using will connect to the nearest access point automatically. So if you have multiple access points with the same SSID, you should be able to automatically roam between them without much interruption at all. And then there's other advanced features. MAC filter, if you want to filter based on MAC address, and either a whitelist or a blacklist. I use this for my Internet of Things network. And then you got radius, which you'll probably never use at home. And then here you've got your channel control. Let's see, what else we got? Networks. This is just kind of your configuration for your home network that's wired into. So for this, it says our subnet is 192.168.1.0, which is actually incorrect. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this. This shouldn't matter. Actually, I'm going to leave it like that so I can show you that it doesn't matter. Just in case you think you need to change this, you don't. And then the rest of these other menus are just, you can poke through or look up on your own time. I'm not going to go through all the menus here. The actual UniFi controller software was meant to control a lot of devices, including the UniFi switches and the security gateways. So this software can do a lot of stuff, and it's made to be the single point of management for all of these UniFi line of devices. But at this point, we should be good. So yeah, here it says it's got the green, or not, wow, I don't even know my colors, the blue light on it, which means that it's good to go. And you should see a colored light on your access point. If you don't, there is a setting for that. Yeah, so here under not settings, config and general, you can set the LED to on, off, or use the site settings, which if you use site settings, it's going to take the configuration from the site, which is done under that settings menu I just showed you. So don't worry about that for now. But I just changed it to have the LED on, just in case. But at this point, your access point should be ready to go. As you can see, it's provisioning again because I made that one change for the LED, so it's going to push that change to the access point, and then it'll come back up operational, and then we'll connect to it. And here we go, it's operational. So if we go to our Wi-Fi settings on our phone and we let it look for our networks, we can see that we have test_Wi-Fi. We're going to connect to that with the password 1234567 Join that. There we go. We are now connected to test Wi-Fi. So let's go to the internet and Google mall in Austin, Texas, apparently. And there we go, we are on the internet. And this is working just like regular wireless access point should. So we are good at this point. And if you want to, you can click on the device now. The newer versions of this software gives you a Wi-Fi experience. That's kind of like a ballpark of how good or bad your Wi-Fi signal is, or how well it's performing. But if we go to statistics, and now we probably need to give it a little bit before we look at that. Clients, you can see Butter, that's the phone I just connected on. You got the IP of it. You can click on it, kind of see some history and other random details. Insights should also show it. We got the client name, Butter, manufacturer, Apple. Is it a user or a guest? So you can set up guest networks on this thing, but right now it's connected as a regular user to the regular wireless network. And you can kind of get some statistics on how much data has been up and down, what time it was first seen, whatnot. So you get a lot of functionality in this controller. Now in order to actually use all of this statistical data, so like the insights and the clients and the histories and all that, that requires you having the controller running 24/7, because your access point is going to be communicating these stats back to the controller. So you have to have a controller running at all times in order for you to actually get all of that information. It is not required to have a controller running all the time, like I've already said. I've kind of just been rambling on for the past few minutes. If you were just here to get your wireless off the ground and working, we are well past that point. That was done after we hit finish on the web UI and the access point started provisioning. That was actually the last step to just getting this thing off the ground. All of this is just kind of extra. And that being said, this is the end of the video because I don't really have anything else I want to talk about. Let me know if you have an idea for a video, or you want to see more of this, or you want me to go more in depth on something. Just let me know down in the comments and I will do my best to make that video. This one was actually a request by oh, I cannot remember who it was, but I'll put him down in the description below. Probably wouldn't have made this video if he didn't suggest it. So I'm trying to look at all your suggestions and kind of take those into account and see if I can't make a video about it while I can. I've been very busy lately, so it's one of the reasons you haven't seen really any videos from me in forever. But hopefully you learned something with this one. Apologize for rambling too much. Thanks for watching and have fun networking.